In this lesson, we'll begin setting up an InDesign document to build our brochure in. Okay, so here we are in InDesign CS5, and we're going to be building a standard trifold brochure. Now, if you're not familiar with a trifold brochure, there's going to be 3 panels on each side of this brochure when it's opened up and laid flat, and each one of these panels is going to fold in on itself. So let me go ahead and tell you sort of the old way to do this. Now, prior to CS5's release, we would actually come over here to and create a new document. We would go to File, New Document, or we could just hit Control-N on our keyboard, and we would go ahead and set up, let's just say, a 2-page document, one for each side of the brochure, and let's just say we want our brochure to be 15 inches wide and 10 inches tall. This will let us print it on a standard tabloid sized piece of paper and still have a little bit of room to trim it down. So we would go ahead and uncheck facing pages here and go ahead and hit OK. Now there's a lot of settings here. We're not going to hit on all those just yet. Let's just go ahead and hit OK here. And when our new document opens up, we'll go ahead and just zoom out just a little bit. So you can see here what we've got going on is we've got a page for the front side, and we've got a page for the back side of our brochure. Now, at this point, we would need to figure out where the panels are. So we would probably come in here and calculate the panel size first, and then we would drag out guides, selecting the guide and telling it exactly where up here in the control panel we want that to fall on our page based on the document rulers. So we would come in and drag out a guide for each of these panels, and we would create our design within these 3 panels. Now, these guides that we've drug in would actually represent the folds. Now, the disadvantage to doing things this way is the fact that the margins are limited to the entire size of this page. Now, this pink line right here actually represents the margins for this document. We skipped over those settings. They were in the new document settings. We're going to talk more about those in an upcoming lesson here, but the margins are restricted to the entire size of this page. We can't limit the margins to just a panel using the old method. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a new method that we can actually do in CS5 that's going to make creating brochures much, much easier for you. So I tell you what, let me go ahead and close out of this window. Just say no to saving changes. And let's go ahead and go to File, New, and choose Document again. And here we are at the new document window. So we're going to go ahead and this time set our number of pages to 6. Now notice that 6 is actually the number of panels that we're going to have for our document. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck facing pages for right now. And let's go ahead and input a little different dimensions here. Now, before I go ahead and do this, let's go ahead and talk about sort of the challenge of figuring the folds for a brochure. Now, based on a 15-inch wide brochure, you would probably first think that we would divide that up into equal thirds. So we would have 3 panels. Each of them would be 5 inches wide. Well, you know, that's understandable how you would initially come to that conclusion, but you know, let's talk about the width of a piece of paper for just a moment. Now, if we were to create 5 equal panel sizes in 5 inches wide apiece, and then we were to try and fold that brochure into its folded form, you're going to get a little bit of bowing because we have one panel that's going to be on the inside, and not allowing that room for the width of the piece of paper or the paper stock is actually going to cause the brochure not to shut correctly. Either that, or we're actually going to have to adjust the positioning of the folds to accommodate for the width of the paper. And then our design's going to look off. We're going to have a little bit that was intended to be on one panel on a different panel, and things just get to be a mess really quickly. So we actually have to calculate that. Now, depending on the size of paper stock you're using, the adjustment you're going to need to make is going to vary. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use about a 1/16 of an inch and adjust the panel size here by about that much. So I'm going to come in here. Let's just go ahead and first create a panel. I've already figured these numbers out. Let's go ahead and create a panel width here of 5.031 inches. And we're going to make the height 10 inches again here. And we've already unchecked facing pages here. Now, we've got here some settings for columns and margins. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the columns set as 1. Let's go ahead and get rid of the margins for right now, though. I'm going to go ahead and just click that down arrow until they're all at 0, and you can see I'm adjusting them all at the same time because this little chain link button is pressed in right here, linking all 4 of those together. So we can also come over here and hit this More Options button, and you're going to see some options down here for bleed and slug. Now, I'm going to go ahead and apply a bleed to this document. If you're not familiar with a bleed, just understand that a bleed is an area where color is printed over the intended trim lines on a document so that we can actually print to the edges of a piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and specify a bleed area of 1/8 of an inch. And because again I've got this link set here, it's going to populate that over into all of these fields. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on this. And InDesign is going to go ahead and create another new document for me. Now let me just go ahead and zoom out on this document. This looks a little bit different. Now you can see here we've got all 6 of our pages, and they all are about the size of one panel. Now let me just come over here to the Pages panel here in InDesign, and we're going to show you what that looks like here. So I'm in the Essentials workspace right now, just so we have a minimal number of panels open. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this corner so we can stretch this out and we can see each one of our pages here. And I'm actually going to come up here to that little flyout menu for the Pages panel and go to Panel Options. And I'm going to uncheck this Show Vertically option so we can get those all lined up nice and neat next to each other. And you can see all 6 of those panels here. Great. Now, we obviously can't send a document that was designed like this to a printer and expect for them to print a trifold brochure with 6 pages like this. So what we need to do is organize these pages into spreads. Now, this is the new way that's actually exclusive to CS5 InDesign, and it's really going to make your life a lot simpler when it comes to brochures. Essentially, InDesign has broken the traditional line of thinking for a spread. Now, previously, a spread would consist of 2 pages next to each other. Imagine if you had a book open in front of you, and you had a left page and a right page, and you had the crack of the book or the seam in the book right in the center. That's a spread. So InDesign has now allowed us to think outside of the box of just a spread containing 2 pages. We can actually include as many pages as we want to in a spread in InDesign CS5. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to come up here to this little flyout menu again, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose this Allow Document Pages to Shuffle option. Now I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's going to get rid of that little check mark next to it here. Now what we'll be able to do is come in and organize these pages into spreads. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and just say that these first 3 pages right here in our Pages panel are going to be the outside of our brochure. Our brochure is going to be 2-sided. It's going to need to be. So we're going to have these first 3 represent the outside of the brochure. So I tell you what, let's just come over here and let's go ahead and grab page number 2, and I'm just going to drag that over and mouse that over to page number 1. And you can see as I get closer, the cursor changes and we get a little bit of a bracket around page number 1. I'm going to go ahead and release that right there, and you can see here that we have created a spread out of those 2 pages just simply by dragging that page over and attaching it to page 1. Now I tell you what, I'm going to come over here and do the exact same thing with page 3 here. I'm just going to drag that over and snap that into position in that same exact spread. And I tell you what, let's just zoom out and take a look here. You can see here that we have created a spread that has 3 pages in it. Now, these 3 pages are going to be the 3 panels of our brochure. So I tell you what, we've done that for the front of the brochure. Let's go ahead and do the exact same thing for the back. So I'm going to go ahead and drag page number 5 into page number 4 here. And let's do the same thing with number 6. Let's drag that up into that spread as well. And if I zoom out here, we have now 2 spreads with a total of 6 pages. Now we'll actually talk a little bit more about the benefit of this method once we reach the end of this course and we export a PDF for our printer. Now, you may be wondering, you know, I still have 3 panels here that are all the exact same width. We talked about needing to make one of these panels a little bit narrower, so when this brochure folds in, this inside panel has room and isn't sandwiched up against this other fold over here, and the brochure doesn't bow out. Well, we still need to do that, and in the next lesson we're going to pick up where we're leaving off here, and we're going to use margins and guides to create a modular grid for this brochure.